Hello, and welcome back to Mammalian Anatomy at Keuka College. In this video, we're going to be talking about the small intestine and its accessory organs. So the small intestine has a number of functions. It's going to be the primary location of digestion. So digestion is going to occur here. It's going to use many different digestive enzymes to chemically break down food, and it's going to be responsible for digesting proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. And also, it's going to digest nucleic acids. So it's going to digest all of the major biological macromolecules. And the enzymes that are used to digest these components are going to be produced by the pancreas and the intestine. We'll see that the small intestine has a velvet-like texture to it, and that velvet-like texture is called the brush border, and there are many glands within the brush border that can actually produce these digestive enzymes. The accessory organs will also create buffers to help neutralize the hydrochloric acid. And we'll see that the small intestine will actually have an alkaline pH around 11. And this is because different digestive enzymes function better at different pHs. So areas such as the mouth is going to have like a pH closer to 7, and the salivary amylase and the lingual lipase will work effectively at a pH of 7. In the stomach, pepsin needs that acidic pH, a pH of 2, to work effectively. And then in the small intestine, the pH is going to be closer to 11. This will inactivate pepsin because it can no longer function well within that area, within that pH. But the enzymes that are produced by the pancreas and intestines will work very effectively at a pH of 11. This buffering also helps protect the small and large intestine from that acidic nature of hydrochloric acid. The small and large intestine does not have the same structure and the same amount of mucus that is produced, so therefore it can't be protected from that hydrochloric acid. So we need to buffer and neutralize that acidity and actually make it a bit more alkaline and basic. The other function of the small intestine is going to be absorption. And this is going to be responsible for absorbing the building blocks of proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. And so it's going to absorb things such as amino acids, monosaccharides, and the glycogen and fatty acids, not glycogen, but it's the building blocks of lipids. My brain not working at the moment. I apologize. Okay. And this absorption is going to be through the blood. So things such as proteins, carbohydrates, and nucleic acids are going to be absorbed into the blood, while lipids are going to be absorbed into the lymphatic system and then eventually deposited into the blood through a different route. And about 90% of the nutrients in water is going to be absorbed by the small intestine. Some of it is going to be absorbed by the large intestine, while the remainder will be excreted from the body. The small intestine is divided into 3 major regions: the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. The duodenum is a small C-shaped structure that is going to actually loop around the stomach and the pancreas, and it's going to be very, very short, but it has really important roles. The accessory structures such as the liver, pancreas, and gallbladder will all deposit their secretions into the duodenum, and therefore the duodenum will carry that material through the rest of the small intestine. The duodenum also produces many hormones and helps regulate the motility and digestion of the surrounding organs. So it's going to be a big communicator within the digestive system. The next part we have the jejunum located here, and deeper down, not deeper, but more inferior, we're going to have the ileum. So the duodenum, jejunum, and the ileum. The ileum is going to be directly connected to the large intestine, and it's going to have a valve called the ileocecal valve. This ileocecal valve is important because it creates one-way flow from the small intestine to the large intestine and prevents anything from moving backwards, which is going to be essential. Because the large intestine is going to have bacteria such as E. coli, that bacteria is essential for the function of the large intestine, and especially in breaking down foods and producing vitamins that the body can't do alone. However, that E. coli and other bacteria, if it gets into the small intestine, can make us very sick. So that's why that valve is so important. The small intestine, as I said before, has almost a velvet-like texture to it. It actually has many folds within its surface. Specifically, the mucosa is going to be folded. And this is important because it increases the surface area and it allows for more absorption to occur. So this is going to allow the small intestine to be very effective at absorbing all of those nutrients and water that we talked about before. And there's going to be actually 3 levels of folding. There's going to be circular folds. So we can see if we dissected the intestine and opened it up, there would be kind of plate-like folds going across its surface. And these circular folds are actually going to have villi on top of them over here. These villi are, so here we can see a little bit bigger of a picture. So these villi are going to be finger-like projections that are going to be on those circular folds and help with the increased surface area. And more so, if we even zoom in onto each little villi or villus, we're going to see that there will be microvilli right on the surface of those, right on the surface. So there's going to be kind of those 3 layers. We have the circular folds, we have the villi, and then if we zoom in on the individual cells, we have the microvilli. If we actually took the small intestine and flattened out all of the folds, the small intestine would have a equivalent surface area to a Olympic-sized tennis court. So it's going to be fairly large in a small space, but this will allow for absorption to be as effective as possible. The small intestine is going to have 3 accessory organs, and these accessory organs are all going to connect to the duodenum, and they will include the pancreas, oh, I spelled that wrong, liver, and gallbladder. So let's first talk about the pancreas. The pancreas is going to have 3 major functions. The first thing is it's going to regulate blood sugar. The pancreas is actually an organ that's going to be within 2 systems. First, it's going to be part of the digestive system, and secondly, it's going to be part of the endocrine system, the system that produces hormones and regulates different factors of the body. So the pancreas is going to produce hormones to regulate blood sugar. These will include hormones such as insulin, and the role of insulin is to lower blood sugar and store that sugar within the liver and the skeletal muscles and the cells of our body. And then the other one is glucagon. When our blood sugar is low and we need it to increase to maintain homeostasis, the pancreas is going to release glucagon and it will take glucose out of the liver and the skeletal muscles so that it can be used by the other cells of the body. So That's one function. Another function is that it creates sodium bicarbonate. Sodium bicarbonate is a buffer that is going to neutralize the acid that is arriving from the stomach. So remember, the pH of the stomach is around 2 because of that hydrochloric acid, and we want the small intestine to have a pH closer to 11. So we're going from very acidic to very basic, and the sodium bicarbonate is going to help accomplish that. This is important because, one, the small intestine is not structured to be able to deal with that acidic environment. And then two, we need the digestive enzymes to work effectively, and the digestive enzymes are going to work best in that alkaline environment. And lastly, the pancreas is going to make digestive enzymes. It's going to include proteases that will digest proteins, pancreatic amylase, which will digest carbohydrates, and lipases that will digest lipids. It'll also produce nucleases. Nucleases will digest nucleic acids, such as DNA and RNA, to a lesser extent. So that's the pancreas. We're going to move on to the liver. The liver has many, many different functions. It probably has about 300 different functions, but I'm just going to focus on a few. One major function is the production of bile. Bile is a component that is responsible for emulsifying lipids. So essentially what emulsification is it takes a big fat droplet and it's going to combine it with these bile salts. And the bile salts are going to wrap around the lipids. And what will happen is it will create smaller droplets of lipids. This is important. This emulsification is important because it will increase the surface area. So surface area is a big thing when we're talking about a digestive system. It'll increase the surface area of the fat, so make it more exposed to pancreatic lipase so that it can be better digested and absorbed by the small intestine. So emulsification is going to take a big fat droplet and turn it into a smaller fat droplet. If you wanted to do a at-home experiment for emulsification, here is a suggestion to try. We know for the most part oil and water don't mix. So what I would do is I would take some cooking oil or whatever oil that you have and mix it equal parts with equal parts with water. So fat and water in equal parts, and then try to shake it up really quickly and see how long it takes for the oil to actually separate from the water. We'll see in that situation we don't have an emulsifier, so the oil and water will separate relatively quickly. On the other hand, what you can do is you can again mix oil and water together and either put in a drop of mustard or put in a drop of soap and mix it up. Both of those are going to have emulsifiers within it. And what will happen is the fat and water won't separate as quickly. So I would actually set both of those up at the same time, mix them up, and then put them aside and come back periodically to see how long it takes for those for the oil and water to separate. So it'll kind of be an interesting experiment to try. Another function of the liver is that it's actually going to process and store nutrients. What will happen is from the small intestine and the large intestine, all material that is going to be absorbed using the circulatory system will first have to travel to the liver and be processed before it will be dropped off into the inferior vena cava and then go to the heart for general circulation. So the liver is going to be kind of like a gateway to the rest of the circulatory system. And so it's going to process the nutrients that come through and make sure that any toxins or bacteria are going to be dealt with before it enters the general circulation. And it's going to do this through a special system of veins called the hepatic portal system. So the hepatic portal system is going to connect the stomach, spleen, pancreas, small intestine, and large intestine to the liver. And any nutrients that are absorbed by the small intestine or the large intestine are going to go to the liver first. If there is excess nutrients, it's going to be stored away. Or if there needs to be more nutrients added, so like if there needs to be more glucose added, it's going to be deposited into the blood, and then it will go into general circulation. The liver will play an important role in getting rid of toxins. So for example, if it's January 1st and you had quite a party the night before, your body may be filled with a lot of alcohol. What will happen is the liver will experience that alcohol first and actually break it down so that most of the alcohol will not enter the general circulation. This is one of the reasons why alcoholics have damaged livers. They may experience scarring or cirrhosis of the liver because their liver is continuously exposed to that alcohol. And the byproduct that is produced by breaking down alcohol is actually poisonous to the stomach, and it can, not stomach, but the liver, and can damage the liver. So, yep. There are also immune cells within the liver, so if any bacteria or things like that enter, the liver can take care of it and break it down. But as I said, this is only 2 functions out of hundreds of functions that the liver has. One of the things that I think is really cool about the liver, and this is just from like personal interest, my family has hemophilia, meaning that we don't have a protein that is responsible for clotting blood. So some members of my family have difficulty clotting their blood, and so they're more apt to bruising and hemorrhaging. So the reason why that this is related to the liver is that the liver actually makes those clotting proteins. And one extreme treatment for hemophilia was to get a liver transplant. And so some people who had very, very severe hemophilia considered getting a liver transplant to help with that disease. Fortunately, nowadays we have recombinant factor VIII, so we can actually make factor VIII using hamster cheek cells. Yay for hamsters. So we can genetically alter these cells to create human factor VIII and create an injectable instead. The other structure that I want us to talk about is the gallbladder. The gallbladder is going to actually store and concentrate bile. So some of the bile that is produced by the liver will actually go into the gallbladder instead. And what the gallbladder is going to do is it's going to take the water out of this secretion and concentrate the bile. So when the duodenum actually calls for bile, it can actually get this concentrated bile and be able to emulsify fats much more effectively. So the cool thing is the duodenum can release a hormone called CCK, And that duodenum will release that hormone in response to a high lipid content. So if someone eats a lot of ice cream or drinks a lot of milk, the duodenum will release this hormone, and it will tell the liver and the gallbladder to create and secrete the bile. And therefore, we can be able to emulsify and better digest the lipids that are within the small intestine. Sometimes the gallbladder is too effective at removing the water from bile. And so what will happen is the bile will start to precipitate and crystallize, and this will create the gallstones that can actually block the bile duct and create quite a bit of discomfort. Individuals that do get gallstones may have their gallbladder removed, and for the most part, that's okay. They will just need to have a change in their diet because they will no longer be able to emulsify their fat as effectively. In the next video, we're going to wrap up by talking about the large intestine, and I hope you have a great day. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.